Welcome everybody to another video of Ancient Greece Reloaded. Today we will talk about the lives of the 10 most desirable Hetairai, aka Courtesans of Ancient Greece. By the way, if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so as to stay tuned for upcoming videos. Before we begin, we will talk quickly about 2 points. 1. Types of consorts in Ancient Greece, and B. About Metics. In regards to Ancient Greece, by and large, when it comes to women, there were 3 categories of consorts. Starting from the bottom, the first type would be the typical prostitutes known as pornai. Their pimp was usually called pornovoskos, aka the shepherd of the pornai. They were paid for their services, aka sex, getting paid, and chow. They resided mostly in brothels, which in essence were legal public brothels, meaning the prostitutes would pay a percentage to their pimp and the institution taxes to the state. I guess the percentage to the pimps was considered as tax deduction. The pimps could be both male or female. Usually they derived from the category of slaves, from young girls being abandoned by their parents or women that decided to leave the safe haven of their homes. Based on today's standards and compared with ancient Greece, women did not have many rights, the way we understand them today. So some decided to enter prostitution, which would indeed give them freedom of choice, etc. Also, independent prostitutes would also belong to the bottom category. In contrast to the pornai, who worked in brothels, they worked the street and were masters of themselves. The next category would be the so-called sacred prostitution. In this case, most prostitutes could be found in temples, mostly in the temples of the goddess Aphrodite, and provide their services under the mantle of sacred love-making. I mean, the church needs to make money, right? So, this category of women consisted of both the typical pornai and Hetairai. Finally, at the top were the Hetairai, singular Hetaira, plural Hetairai, ancient Greek courtesans meaning companion, which was a polite term for a kept mistress. They were beautiful, sophisticated, educated and respected women, who were without a doubt the most liberated women of ancient Greece. Put another way, Hetairai were more expensive, in some cases ridiculously expensive, and exclusive prostitutes. Hetairai, unlike pornai, engaged in long-term relationships with individual clients and provided companionship as well as sex. They were retained by wealthy aristocratic men, often politicians, to act as either a hostess or a lead companion at parties known as symposium, a perk denied to the respectable wives and daughters of ancient Greece, who rarely left their homes and had almost no rights and no political or legal power. Hetairai were rewarded for their companionship and intellectual stimulation, as well as other pleasurable favors. Many Hetairai were also musicians and artists, flute players and dancers, who provided entertainment at the symposium. Even the famous Socrates would talk a lot about philosophical topics with the famous Hetairai Aspasia. Also, there were schools that educated young girls in becoming an Hetairai. Moreover, there were cases of Hetairai who started from rock bottom and were able to reach the top of riches and power. The second point that should be addressed would be the term Metics. The Hetairai of ancient Greece were, 9 times out of 10, women born outside of Athens, known as Metics, meaning foreigner, e.g. not an Athenian. Metics were obliged to pay tax to live in Athens and were not allowed to marry Athenians. As it was not acceptable to be a single woman in those days, the next best thing was to become a mistress to an Athenian. How else was one to pay one's taxes? The status of being a metic did have its advantages. A metic was not burdened by the Athenian laws, which applied to married Athenian women. Athenian women had little or no social life, and were not authorized to own land nor participate in any financial transactions. What follows is a short presentation of the 10 most desirable Hetairai of ancient Greece and were active mostly in Athens. Starting off with the most famous Hetairai of all, Aspasia. 1. Aspasia of Miletus. Aspasia was the most famous woman of ancient Athens, considered the most beautiful and intelligent Hetairai of the city. She was born around 470 BCE in Miletus, Ionian Greece. Most famously, she was the companion to Pericles, a Greek statesman and general during the Golden Age of Athens. Aspasia, who, according to ancient Greek legend, taught rhetoric and was the it girl of her time. The most powerful men of Athens vied for an invite to her symposia, aka dinner parties, where intellectuals and philosophers gathered to debate on subjects such as art, literature, music, and the meaning of life. Aspasia and the philosopher Socrates were firm friends. It's even said it was her teachings that influenced him the most. Aspasia met Pericles around 450 BCE, and after he divorced his wife, they lived together as husband and wife for over 20 years. Pericles treated her as an equal, and Aspasia is known to have advised him on matters of state and wrote many of his speeches. He was often condemned for his dependence upon her validation of him. Plato, the famous ancient Greek philosopher, even went so far as to suggest that Aspasia had written Pericles' most famous speech, the Funeral Oration, which was an official speech for the Athenian soldiers that were killed at one of the opening battles of the Peloponnesian War. Moreover, Aspasia bore Pericles a son, also called Pericles, who, because of their illegal relationship and her status as a metic, was denied Athenian citizenship. After his legitimate sons died, Pericles did appeal unsuccessfully to the assembly to grant citizenship status to his son. Unfortunately, only after his death was his wish fulfilled. It was Aristophanes, the ancient Greek playwright, who claimed that Aspasia, now a wealthy and respected woman, even though she did own a brothel, was to blame for the offset of the Peloponnesian War. He suspected that Aspasia was behind the Megarian decree of Pericles, which was a set of economic sanctions imposed upon Megara by the Athenians, because the Megarians had stolen prostitutes from her brothel and she wanted them punished. Aristophanes believed that the decree left the Megarians with no choice but to become allies with Sparta. War broke out soon afterwards, as Sparta and their allies feared the growing power and influence of Athens. After the death of Pericles in 429 BC, who was a victim of the plague of Athens, as were his legitimate sons before him, Aspasia became the companion of his friend Lysicles. Lysicles was originally an uneducated sheep merchant, whom she had helped become an Athenian political leader and general. Lysicles was killed in the Peloponnesian Wars campaign in Caria of 428 to 427 BC. Just for the records, the sources in regards to Aspasia's and Lysicles' relationship do not agree completely in everything. Finally, nothing else is known of Aspasia after the death of Lysicles, not even the year of her death. 2. Phryne. Phryne was a much sought after Hetaira. She was born in Thespeia in the 4th century BC, but spent most of her life in Athens. In short, she was the most beautiful Hetaira of Athens during her time, and she became one of the wealthiest women in Greece. It is said that her real name was Mnisariti, which translates to commemorating virtue, but she was known as Phryne, meaning toad, owing the name to the yellow complexion of her skin, a nickname commonly used in ancient Greece for ladies of ill repute. What can I say, jealous people. Phryne's extraordinary beauty was the talk of ancient Athens, and she is rumored to have been the model for the famous ancient sculptor Praxiteles, who also happened to be one of her lovers. It is said one of the most famous ancient Greek statues created by Praxiteles, the famous Aphrodite of Knidos, was the first naked female Greek statue and was the most copied one. It was modeled based on Phryne, and this was to be something that would cause an enormous stir in Athens. Now, in ancient Greece, the gods demanded humility and respect from mortals, and Phryne's desire to be represented as a goddess angered the gods. For the gods to be represented in human form was a sign of the divinity, but for a mortal woman to create the image of a goddess in her own likeness was a crime. The above two lines was the BS that brought Phryne before the court of Athens. It was not long before Phryne's secret was out, and all Athens learned that she was the model for Praxiteles' statue of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. No mortal had ever had the audacity to do this. Phryne ended up in the courts of ancient Athens accused of sacrilege. Phryne is best remembered for the trial for impiety brought against her by the people of Athens. Sacrilege or aspasia was considered a lack of proper respect for something that was considered sacred and was a capital offense, which could result in Phryne if found guilty in either exile, slavery or death. According to Athenaeus, an ancient Greek orator, Phryne was defended by her lover of the day, the orator Hyperides. Even in the public spectacle of Phryne ripping off her clothes in front of the crowds and walking nude into the sea during the festivals of the sacred Eleusinian mysteries would not help her decadent reputation during her trial. It was more like a PR move by Phryne. Phryne's improper conduct inspired Apelles, one of the most influential painters of ancient Greece, to create his famous picture of Aphrodite called Anadiomene, meaning rising from the sea, which sadly today does not exist. As the trial progressed, Hyperides realized things were not looking good for Phryne, and in what can only be described as an eureka moment or a moment of divine enlightenment, he tore off Phryne's dress, baring her breasts in front of everybody in court, providing proof that her beauty is worthy of a goddess. If any woman can lend her body to Aphrodite, it's Phryne. Everyone's jaws dropped by Hyperides' move. The reason behind Hyperides' mad moment was that only the gods could sculpt such a perfect body. Killing or imprisoning her would be interpreted as sacrilege and insolence towards the gods. Hyperides' inspirational madness worked its magic. Phryne was acquitted and triumphantly walked from court. Praxiteles completed his sculpture, the famous The Aphrodite of Cnidos. The original is now lost, which is thought to be the first significant nude sculpture of a woman. Lesson to be learned: if it's BS you use to bring me down, then BS I shall use to bring the smack down. I can imagine Phryne's smug smile now. Okay, at this point we will end the first part of the video and continue our story in our next video. That being said, remember guys to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, it would help us a lot. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for upcoming videos.